In this video, we'll look at depth of field and focus. Depth of field refers to the distance of objects from the camera within a scene that are either in focus or out of focus. The amount or the distance of focus between an object and the camera is known as the depth of field. The amount of focus can be manually adjusted by the camera lens and can precisely increase or decrease the amount of focus and sharpness that is seen. In our example, we have a scene containing a row of coloured dominoes sitting on a plane. Using depth of field techniques, we'll begin to experiment with focus and defocusing objects. For this example, we will be using the coloured dominoes. To begin, we'll look at how we can achieve different amounts of focus within a scene. To do this, we'll need to adjust the amount of light that is captured within the scene by the camera. This can be adjusted by experimenting with f-stops. F-stops refer to the amount of light allowed to enter the camera as it looks at a scene. The camera can adjust this by changing its aperture settings, which is the size of the camera lens that allows light in, also known as f-stops. The amount of light determines how much focus the camera is allowed to see in the scene. The higher the f-stop, the more light is allowed to enter the camera and therefore the more focus is allowed. The lower the f-stop, the lesser amount of light is allowed and therefore the lesser amount of focus is allowed. We'll now look at the effects that different f-stops has on objects in the scene. In our example, the camera is set to focus on the blue domino in the foreground. Our first f-stop we will use is f1.4, and as we can see, it keeps our blue domino in focus while all of the other dominoes are blurred and defocused. As we begin to increase the size of the f-stop, we can see that the amount of blur and defocus in the background slowly begins to sharpen up as we increase the size. If we change the camera's focus now to the green domino in the background of the scene, we can see that the foreground blur and defocus slowly starts to change and sharpen up as we increase the size of the f-stop. There are three types of focus that are specified with depth of field. They are shallow focus, middle focus and deep focus. We'll now take a look at each in more detail. Shallow focus refers to when a single object in the foreground is in focus while everything else is not. It is used to emphasize one object from the rest. This is used in films to give focus to a close object while the rest of the scene in the background remains blurred. Middle focus is when a particular object in the middle of a scene is in focus while the objects around it in the background and in the foreground are out of focus, as shown in our examples. Deep focus refers to when the foreground, middle ground and background are all clearly in focus. There is no blur and everything within a scene is sharp and every object can also be seen. This type of focus can be achieved by using a large f-stop such as the ones used in our example here. So these are the different types and elements that are relevant to depth of field and focus.